Welcome to the final webinar of AirCover this year. AirCover is an international inspiring webinar series by Global University Systems that brings to you some of the most interesting businesses and business leaders from across the globe. Our topic today is multicultural marketing, a catalyst for change. We'll delve into the world of strategic marketing, talk about the importance of ethnic marketing, and learn how to create brand awareness in an increasingly multicultural society. We're joined by Manish Tiwari, who is the founder and managing director of Here and Now, UK's leading multicultural advertising and marketing agency. The agency has won an impressive number of awards for multicultural campaigns, including the British Asian Media Awards and the Billboard Campaign Award for the pandemic year. Manish was named one of the top 20 diversity professionals in the world by The Guardian in 2020, and he was recognized as Media Entrepreneur of the Year in 2019 by the House of Lords. Manish, very warm welcome. Thank you for
Thank
taking
you.
the time to speak to our staff and students. We're excited to have you here. Manish, and just before we start, at GUS, we place a lot of importance on our company values. And we spoke about this before. I would like to tease out one of the values and hear what your thoughts are on respect. What does respect mean to Here and Now 365?
Thank you, Jackson and Fabio. And very sorry for the inconvenience which we just faced. And this is how the world has become. It's quite unpredictable. The more connected we are with technology and the more uncertain we are, what's going to happen next. And this is exactly what we faced in the last year and a half. Everyone was so sure, and we were talking about going to the space, which happened. We saw some of the biggest entrepreneurs on this planet take a flight out to space. But then the pandemic happened, and we realized that how uncertain this world is. And that's been a great learning for all of us. So thank you for having me here again. I would like to start with one of the values which I personally respect a lot, and that value is respect. What does respect mean to me, to my business? So I'll just go back a bit in time and talk about my growing up in India. So I grew up in a small town in central India, and the school where I used to go was a Christian school. It was a convent where we used to start our day with Bible. Next to where my classroom was, I could see from the window of the classroom a mazar, which is, if you don't know, it's like a place of worship for Muslims, where it's like a Sufi kind of shrine, where someone comes and they pray and they go. And obviously, I was brought up in a Hindu household. So one day, suddenly out of blue, I went to my mom and said that, look, I want to dedicate my time learning and learning the scriptures and studying them. And I must be about 7-8 years old. So I mean, you can understand that it's out of the blue. And I went and said that, look, I want a copy of the Bible, I want a copy of the Gita and the Quran and whatever other religion I knew, like the Jain religion. I said, I want all this, and I want to learn, and I want to kind of master this. And my mother was a bit shocked, and she didn't take it very kindly. So obviously that idea never materialized. But the point here is that growing up in a society like that, where you kind of constantly imbibing and kind of seeing different points of view, different faiths, it does something to you, and you kind of it instills a sense. I won't say respect is the right word, but it instills a sense that your way is not the only way. The way you are as a human being is not the only way to be. And I think that is very important, because coming back to the business world and to the world of today, where we are in London, one of the best cities in the world, was one of the most, should I say, use the word busiest city, where you are at the cross section of everything from the global capitalism, politics, culture, music, business. So it's all colliding together. And when in such a world, it's kind of those values come handy. You kind of are able to see different ways of being. You're between different communities. There might be an LGBT community. There might be a community which has a different way of being. And when I say respect, I think that the two layers to it, fundamentally how you accept other human beings when they come to you without any reason. I mean, without any presumption, how you react to them. You might find them funny. I mean, that's someone eccentric is a punk. He puts a nose stud here. I mean, you might find it funny, and it's perfectly human nature. But whether you have that sense of acceptance and kindness towards them, I think that to me is respect. And moving on to business, again, in the business world, you constantly, and in our kind of business, which is basically advertising, and where you're dealing with human beings all the time in different ways, you're constantly coming across as people who would have a different way of being, completely different way of talking, of how they start a conversation. And again, here, it's the same premise that you kind of accept them. So that's respect for me. Where I just wanted to put something here, which is, respect should not be seen as manipulation, because very often when we want to kind of be in the good books of people, you obviously start whether you like them or not. So if I go and meet a billionaire, and I've seen this all the time, in practical life, you go and see a billionaire who's hosting an event or who's kind of talking about something, and everyone is playing the same tune. Everyone is just going on gaga about him. Even something which is wearing, which is actually not quite good, becomes like an emperor's fine fabric. So, it's that kind of attitude which comes in the business world. So business world can be deceptive. It can be really deceptive. And you can have all kinds of situations where people want you to do certain things and they come across and behave in a certain way. So, I mean, I'm not going to use respect as the right measurement for that behavior. But intrinsically, when you're with human beings, with different kind of people coming from very different backgrounds, whether they have a beard, they have funny cap, they have this or that. It's intrinsically how you connect with them, and whether you accept them fully or not. I think that is where respect to me comes, and it's for me, it's a very fundamental value of my life.
Thank you, Manish. What a great way to start with this value. It's a wonderful value, respect, that we should have for one another. And very inspiring to hear your curiosity as a child to get to know more about these different religions. That in itself shows that the value of respect was there a long time ago. It's amazing to see that the curiosity was there. To our viewers, do send questions for Manish in the chat box. You can send them throughout this webinar. And don't be shy. Just go ahead and send your questions. So Manish, let's dive straight in. To kick things off, can you introduce the agency you are founding director of, Here and Now 365, and the work you do there?
So Here and Now 365, I started in 2006. I came to this country in 2001, and I was a student. So at that time, I was pursuing a master's, which was in creative writing. And the inspiration behind that was simply that while I was in Mumbai, I was doing a bit of theater, and I got inspired by a funded program, which was funded basically by British Council. And I put two and two together and said the best way to practice this craft of writing is to go to Britain. So I just landed up, I got a small stipend, and I was here. But in all those years, eventually, when it came to kind of going back to work, which I did in 2003, I could sense that it was not, I was not being, should I say, respected, or I was not being given the due, because I was a professional. I knew advertising. I had worked back then, back in India, in Mumbai. So that's the genesis, which I was looking for an opportunity where I could do something meaningful and possibly leverage all the experience which I had, and all the traveling and all the different people I was meeting. And being in a city like London, which is, as I said, like, it's the hotspot, because this is the only city in the world which is a political capital, which is a cultural capital, which is also kind of not a very new city. It's an old city. You have history, a very rich history. So everything is happening here. And I was kind of constantly feeling that pulse. And I wanted to do something which was in some ways also bigger than just mere advertising. So, I mean, advertising was not my ambition. I was looking for doing something which I couldn't possibly give a bigger purpose. And it wasn't quite logically that sequence, because obviously when you start a business of any kind, you have a straight financial pressure. You have to meet the bills, you have to pay people, and I had all those things. Even though I was lucky, I got good breaks. Even then, a couple of people who came and joined me, and in those days, the people who joined me also were students, and they had big hope from me, and I could see it there in their eyes that I was going to kind of create something. They wanted to work with me, and that became the fuel. That was actually my, because I was not willing to let them down. And I think that is something how human beings operate. I mean, I think if you see the motivation behind people who have become bigger than other people, or who are kind of, you can say, have attained some level of success, there are people who are driven by motivation, not just for themselves, but for other people as well. And I think that is key. That sense of purpose, whether it's for your family, immediate wife or kids or whatever, whosoever they are in your life, your parents. I think that sense of doing something for your society at large, I think is important. And Here Now 365 was born out of that, a little bit of that whole advertising, marketing, straitjacket thinking, but equally, there were a lot of other factors behind it. And eventually, I kind of started defining it as multicultural marketing.
It's amazing to hear your journey, because you were studying, you did an undergraduate in engineering in Rajasthan, then you moved to the UK to do your postgrad in creative writing, and then to found the largest agency targeting diaspora communities in the UK. It's an amazing journey that you have there. And I'm
Yeah,
sure a lot of our students are excited to hear this journey. So we're quite happy to have you here. You founded Here and Now 365 over 15 years ago. And obviously, a lot has changed in marketing and advertising field in that time. Can you take us through some of the challenges you have faced while adapting to the increasingly digital world?
absolutely. So, I mean, we are the second generation in the human race in the current form, which has seen advertising as it is. Like, let's say, the reason I'm putting this point across is that if you're born in the 1950s, or let's say post World War II, to be more precise, that was when mass advertising exploded. You had the Coca-Colas of the world who had global ambition, who didn't want to be just selling in a town or one country for that matter. They wanted to be global entities. So that was 1950s, 60s, when you had global advertising, you had television channels exploding. And we literally, if you take that as a timeline, we were born in, I was born in 1970s. So I take that as the second generation, which was born into this commercial era, where you had mass advertising happening in a big way. And eventually, when I started working, digital advertising was not quite there. I started my work life in 96, 97. And it was still the time when people used to read newspapers. And television was the big thing, because television was kind of, everyone was hooked on to those kind of appointment viewing. I don't think that word would exist anymore, but there was a term called appointment viewing, when you would go home because you would watch a certain program at a certain time. I think in the United Kingdom, programs like EastEnders or Coronation Street qualified for that, where people were waiting day after day to kind of watch that particular episode. So that was the era. Howsoever, the challenges which I faced eventually was when we got deep into it, the format started changing. Like, digital became the biggest thing. 2003, 4, 5, those were the years when digital advertising, everyone could predict that this was going to take the future. But what no one had predicted in those days is what mobile phones are going to do. How that screen is going to change. How that screen format is going to change. That came much later, and it's not even, it's less than 5 years we've seen this revolution. If you read Netflix, the founder, his journey, and it's an amazing book. One should read that. His whole journey. He started the company sometime in 2000 something, and initially they wanted to be a video rental company like Blockbuster, and eventually they became Netflix. It's an evolution which they did not themselves knew, but that's how it has been in the last 15, 20 years. None of us knew what was going to happen next, And even now, I think we can't be comfortable because we're talking about screens, we're talking about mobile phones. We are in the era of Netflix where everything is on a touch of a button, but you don't know what the future looks like. Eventually, I personally feel, and I think that's not deviating from your question. I mean, in terms of challenges, the challenges remain the same as to how the core challenge is the same. How do you connect with another human being through your communication? That is the core challenge, which will be the basic challenge. Now you have in terms of business formats, whether you're going to use single screen, you're going to have maybe tomorrow some kind of I don't know. I mean, you might have a technology like what Google is doing, which is Waymo, which is automated cars. They're trying to do this in London as well. They've done this successfully in some suburbs of San Francisco. So if you have those kind of things happening, again, the conversation will change. If you have a 1 hour drive through this automated cars, what are people going to do? They're going to watch TV there. So so you don't know what's going to happen in the next 5-10 years. All this media and mediums are going to change, but the core problem will always be the same, which is how do you connect better with people? How do you kind of overcome the cynicism? And when I said that I'm the second generation which has grown up with advertising, we are cynical. We know what advertising looks like. You can tell me, and most of us, we know that this is an ad. Yeah. But when advertising started, it was not supposed to be like that. It was supposed to make you feel something. But now, 80% of the time, people don't feel anything. Yeah. They just see some images and some communication, and they know it's ads, and they're in a different world. You have to kind of jolt them to bring them back. Yeah. And I think that remains forever the challenge.
It's good to hear about the challenges, and especially this one that you pointed out, which lots of people can resonate with. Many of our students will be following this webinar, hoping to get some tips on steps after university and perhaps even during university to better their chances of employment. Can you offer students watching this webinar any advice you would tell your younger self looking for success?
Yeah, I mean, I do meet a lot of people now who are a product of this age. When I say this age, they have grown up in the 90s or later. And they're very used to a kind of on-demand situation wherein they personally feel that they can do one thing today and they can do another thing tomorrow, or they can dabble with 5 different things. And they don't want to be controlled. And I can understand that emotion because possibly it's a generation which has lived with that luxury of having everything on tap. However, my only advice to people, and especially the younger people, is always this, that while you can dabble and you can do many things, and life has opened those opportunities, you need to master something. And to master something, you need a level of persistence. So, and if you're going to put in that level of persistence, the rewards are huge. So while one can understand that, I think everyone wants to be certain things when they're in their early 20s, or, we all want to be rock stars. But if you have to focus on a career, whatever you choose, you have to put that effort. And I think there's a beautiful book which came out a few years back, and which talks about how, I'm just trying to remember the name of the book, but it talks about how 10,000 hours you put into anything can make you a genius. So the genius is not born. Yeah.
Persistence is the key then. That's the secret.
That's the secret.
Thank you, Manish. Here and Now is an accredited member of the IPA Diversity Group, the premium body of advertising agencies in the UK. And diversity is clearly integral to what you do on a daily basis. Can you tell us why diversity is so important in communications?
Very good question, Jackson, because look, what we are facing in this world, we have the challenges increasingly of very these are challenges which are not new. I mean, you have terrorism in today's world, which is, it doesn't spare anyone. I mean, you're living in this country where you have from time to time things like that happening. Yeah. You have deeper divides. these divides were supposed to be, I mean, if you look at the history since post-World War II, we have been in an unprecedented economic boom. You have less hunger all over the world. You have more money, more resources all over the world. It's not just this country, but all over the world. But you have deeper problems emerging. You still have these differences which are becoming wider, ever wider.
Yeah.
And you have challenges. I mean, I can talk openly, like challenges like what's happening with China as a country, the kind of authoritarian regimes which are springing up. They're not going away. I mean, Russia is not fully a democracy. I'm not talking about politics, but I'm talking about how the world is fragmenting. And you have this huge migrant issues. I mean, you can see, and my heart goes out when people are crossing over just to come here. And whatever we have taken for granted, there's so many millions or rather billions who want this. I mean, rightfully so, we are possibly one of the most privileged people in the world living this country, working this country, or doing whatever we're doing, following our passion or what we think is the right thing for us to follow. But equally, there are a lot many more people who are in a dire situation. The migrant crisis is just one example. And one can't help but think that why is this happening? Why do we, when we have the resources, the money, and also the political willingness, as often stated, to solve problems or resolve issues, why does this happen? And somewhere I personally feel that how the equation between communities, hyper-nationalism, and all these challenges which are there, have continued to fester. It's not creating a better world. And somewhere we need to learn to talk more to kind of, reach. It's not about pacifism, or it's not about placating or, making people or accepting them with, with the things with which they're living, but it's kind of creating dynamic dialogues. And
thank you, Manish. Dynamic dialogues, and it's great that you're on the forefront of this of pushing diversity, especially through your company, and which you have been doing for the last 15 years. Now, from Here and Now is a global company working with companies in Europe and now in the US and Canada. It'll be intriguing to get your thoughts on Britain being seen to have a culturally diverse market. Can you tell us the extent of this and compare this to other countries you offer your services in?
Sure. So when I said dynamic dialogues, I mean, the point I was trying to make was that as a nation, I mean, this is happening in this country. We had this far right a few years back, and the far right had a strong pull. It still has not gone away. And I know who I'm talking about, the kind of people. In fact, helped, we worked collaboratively with Saatchi and Saatchi to once do something about this. We did create a communication campaign.
Yeah.
The beauty of Britain is, and that while we have a huge imperial past, the current set of people we have in public life, or I'm saying not everyone, but a large number of them are very willing. They are willing to construct a company. They're willing to have that conversation about diversity. It might not, in some places, it just might be lip service. It just might be a tick in the box. But ever so, all the more that you have, even at the grassroots level, majority in this country are willing to, look at those issues. It's not, we kind of stand up for those, basic human dignity. Now, and that's why Britain is unique, because Britain has, in some ways, moved away from that ideology. The global Britain. I'm not I'm not pushing the conservative or Boris agenda, but he has coined this word called global Britain. And what he's trying to say in his own way, and I'm not, I'm against Brexit, by the way, but global Britain has a resonance only because in this country we're always looking out how to kind of sell whatever we produce, whatever we do here, we create up to a certain quality. So the British standards are accepted in the world. Anywhere in the world, they accept British standards, and that quality is accepted. And global Britain, in a way, is happening. It's not just Boris who has started this. It's been there in the DNA. It's been there in the DNA, and it's happening, which is a great thing. With other countries, like we do work in Europe and Canada to some extent, and even in Australia, we started doing some work. What I see is that, let's say, Europe is multiculturalism doesn't necessarily work in Europe to the same extent. Like, for instance, France is a good example. That's a direct contrast. France, it's not the same thing. Or here, all the problems have been debated. The issues of kind of segregation, race, have been all the more openly talked about. And it's not a perfect situation. There never will be a perfect situation, but at least it's out there in the open. You're able to stand up, talk about it, and there is no kind of, the public, by and large, is accepting of that. In countries like France and some other European countries, I don't see that. I mean, it's multiculturalism to that extent has not necessarily worked, because part of them is in denial. Part of them is in denial. They think it's not supposed to be like that, but we don't have a choice. As they say, the boat has sailed, the ship has sailed long back. The world was, it was a world where the Western countries went out and created colonies all over the world. It was not just Britain, but many European countries. They went all over Asia, Africa, and they created colonies. Now, you can't expect that it's not going to reverse itself, because we created a global world long back. So that global world is going to have its momentum. And we have to accept multiculturalism, because there are a lot of people who are in denial of that. And there are a lot of far right and right wingers who say, oh, this is all rubbish. Why do people need to travel and come here, or why they're coming here and creating problems? They don't have a choice. They're not coming here by sheer choice. So it's better that we address it and create an economy which works for everyone. And I think to that extent, Britain is on the right track. They have accepted it. They've accepted it. The system has accepted it, and we're working towards it. Now, obviously, every now and then someone will raise their hand and say that, look, no more migrants. This is not right. And, people who are living here should be only X, Y, Z. And it's never going to work like that. You can obviously control migration. But eventually, migration is linked to many things. You have labor shortage in this country, and it's not just this country. You have similar situation in Europe as well. So the shortages are there.
Some very interesting points that you've raised there. Thank you, Manish. Just because we are running out of time, I'll quickly switch on to the next question, a final question, by the way. It is, having worked on projects for the NHS, for the British Heart Foundation, for the global leading brands such as Nestle and Sky, which collaboration are you most proud of, and why?
Okay, so there, I would talk about NHS because right now we've seen the positive impact NHS was able to make, during the pandemic, and how much we needed that. So NHS, we did some work, which was first, it was a pilot which was done at the Greater Manchester Public Health Network, and we created a campaign. There was a campaign which they were running, which was about cancer survivors. And urging people to go for cancer screening. So that was a campaign, but the tone and how it was done was only cutting ice with certain audiences. And they had the research to prove that. So we created a campaign which was more aimed at the Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups, which was completely different in tonality, because how we or certain communities will look at problems like this is very different from certain other people, how they look at it. Because some people, the ad which was originally created was done in a humorous way. Now, that was never going to be accepted with certain minority groups. So we turned it around. We created our own set of communication. And there was a huge uptake, in terms of people going for screening, early screening, because early screening can then save lives.
Absolutely.
So that was the campaign. Then it was taken national, and Saatchi took it national. So It was a campaign done for Public Health Network, which became national, and it runs till date. So yeah,
good to hear
there
that.
was one.
Thank you, Manish. It's an amazing campaign, especially for health and for the NHS.
Yep.
Certainly something to be very proud of. Let's take a look at some of the questions we have received from our viewers.
Sure.
So we'll go into the first one. As globalization continues to make the world more multicultural, how long will it be until all brands realize that they must adopt multicultural marketing techniques? What are your thoughts on this?
So there's certain brands. Let's say, example, Coca-Cola. They are global. They are in every part of the world, and they think that they're doing a great job because they have local marketing in different parts of the world with a central core idea. Yeah. However, we are in that era where how consumer sets are thinking is evolving so fast. Like in terms of food and drinks, the younger generation or people who are turning vegan, people who are turning down or going against sugar, the radicalization at certain segments is very, very fast. Yeah.
Yes.
And similarly, how the belief systems are changing. We don't realize it. I mean, there's a generality because, people are being clubbed together. And I see this in our kind of marketing as well, because we do a lot of work with World Food.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of thinking that, we can push it that way. We can make this group eat this, but it doesn't work like that, unless you kind of synchronize yourself with the demographic trends, with the population trends. It doesn't work. And a good example is that we work with Asda and Morrison's. They've done remarkably well in the World Food segment because they've focused on that. And this is in the last decade or so, in the last 10 years. I think they are great case studies how the growth has been so high in the World Foods.
It's quite good to hear.
It's amazing growth in that area. Yeah.
Thank you, Manish. Our next question is the use of social media as important in multicultural marketing as it is in traditional marketing?
Yeah, I mean, the medium remains the same. It's how you use it, how you give the context in which you kind of put it across. It's obviously the challenges are the same, how you connect better with people. Mediums don't change. I mean, it's not that in multicultural groups, they're not watching TV. They're also using the same internet. In fact, some are more, some are less. So, it doesn't really change that.
Manish, we're slowly coming to an end to this webinar. But thank you so much for sharing expertise and insights with us. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Some really interesting points that you brought to the table and really insightful things that we've discussed. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
And to our viewers, thank you for joining us today. Apologies again for the slight delay and technical issues in a more and more digital world. We have all encountered this at some point or the other. Our next webinar is on the 26th of January, 3 p.m. GMT, with Gautam Sinha, founder and creative director of Napadori, one of India's foremost contemporary designs. For more information, follow our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel. As we already said at the beginning, this is our final webinar this year. We wish you all from our Aircover team and from Gus a wonderful holiday season, and see you all in the new year. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Jackson. Thank you, Fabio.